Let's now move into Tanzania right now for a moment. We'll come back to Kenya a little later on and talk with Moremi Marwa, who's the CEO of Tanzania Securities, to talk about the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange, the market's performance, especially over the past few weeks. It has been a mixed bag of performance. Moremi, can you give us some specifics on that?
Morning, Larry. Last week specifically, let's talk about last week, where activities were a little bit lower compared to the week before. Activities and also the turnover was down. And in terms of indices, we saw some improvement on that, and that was on the backdrop of DCB bonus shares that were introduced into the exchange, and that improved the market capitalization, and it has a small-scale improvement on the indices as well. Though from the fundamental performance of the market, the indices almost remained flat. So that's what we saw during the week last week. And yes, sir.
Yes, I'll go ahead and talk more about that, because we were talking about introduction of new shares into the stock exchange. So how do you see that playing out in the long term?
At least in the medium term, what we can see from that introduction of those bonus shares, which goes with the rights issue, which is currently open for DCB Bank, where they raise new capital. They changed the status from a community bank to a commercial bank, and that required them to raise some more capital to finance their expansion plan. And they did that through bonus shares, where they reserved cash and gave people shares instead of cash. And also they are doing a rights issue, which is closing end of week next week. And that will enable the bank raise the necessary capital that they need for expansion plan, and also to finance their change of status from a community bank to a commercial bank. So when those shares, the rights issue shares, are introduced and allowed to trade after the end of next week, we might see a lot of activities, because this is the counter where last year we saw some good performance on that count, and this year also in the first half we saw some good performance, and they've actually discounted their rights issue by almost 40%, from 620, the current market price, to 380. So when these shares will come for trading after end of next week, we might see a lot of activities in this counter.
All right, I want to take a more of a bird's eye view of the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange. You have about just a month and a half before the year closes. Why do you see it tapering off towards the end of the year?
Normally during this period of the year, starting November as we go to December, we do not expect a lot of activities in the market. Because during this time, investors both on retail and retail will preserve their cash for holidays and school fees during the end of year and start of year next year. So a lot of domestic obligation from the retail investors, and normally they will not participate much in the market. Institutional investors as well, they'll preserve their cash for year-end obligation, tax payments, and other obligations during the year. So on the equity side, we might not see a lot of activities coming from both kind of investors. However, what we have seen last week and the week before is that there has been a lot of activities now on the bonds market, where, for example, last week bonds worth 28 billion transacted in the market. This has not been seen from the beginning of the year, and this is an indication that there has been some improvement in terms of liquidity in the economy in general. But if you look at the type of participants in the bond market, these are almost all of them are commercial banks. And this being the case, then it's an indication that there are good liquidity improvement in the economy and the banks as well. So we have seen banks coming in the market last week, trading both for profit margin as well as portfolio building, especially as we approach the year end. And also on the primary market last week, we saw the oversubscription, where the government wanted to raise 42 billion out of the 5-year bond. But they received the application for 63 billion. That is a 47% oversubscription. Again, key players in that market are commercial banks. And the fact that they are actively trading, participating on in the secondary market, but also they are participating with this amount of a subscription on the primary market. This is a good indication that the economy now has a little bit more liquidity after what we saw last year in the first half of this year, where the central bank came to the economy to kind of strengthen the shilling and also improve in terms of inflation, and therefore they've mopped out liquidity. But now the situation has improved, and we have seen that in the banking sector, and we might see that in the private sector as well in terms of lending now.
All right, Moremi, let's talk about the currency. The shilling touched the lowest since January. It's at a low that has not been seen since January, despite the fact that the Tanzania shilling crossed the 1,600 mark against the dollar last week. A lot of analysts saying this is largely because of high demand from the industrial and service sectors. From where you sit, how do you see the Tanzania shilling?
It will be a challenge at least for this month, and this is basically coming from the importation, where there have been increased importation of fuel. In Tanzania right now, if you pass through the fuel stations, you'll see queues and people want to buy fuel, and fuel is not there. And this has made, out of speculation, but also out of the key fundamentals, that the fuel is not enough, and also we have seen some kind of on the electricity side as well, in terms of power generation, where we now see some more importation of fuel to go into power generation. And the fact that is the case, and we depend this importation from outside. And this has, out of speculation again, and out of that fundamental parameters in the market, has made the demand of the dollar increase, and the shilling has weakened. And as you say, this is the first time that we see this kind of weakening shilling since the start of the year. But again, this emanates from the demand on the dollar, especially to import fuel to go into transportation, but also power generation, where we have seen some rationing recently in terms of electricity, and therefore people have to import fuel to go into power generation. And as I said, especially for this month, because we also have seen some improvement in terms of rain, and because we rely a lot of our power generation from hydro, and therefore the good rain, and this is the season that has started. So when we start December and towards the end of the year, we might see the shilling strengthen again, because the demand of fuel will now decrease compared to the situation that we have right now.